Hey, welcome in. It's Husker247 Daily. I'm Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson over there. It's Michigan week, Tuesday morning. We're getting ever so close to Nebraska and the Wolverines at 2:30 on Saturday in Lincoln. Let's just get right into it, Brian. Nebraska, you kind of go down the list. There's like a two-page list of things that Nebraska is doing really well statistically right now. I feel bad for Keith Mann having to keep track of all that. I guess it's a good problem to have, but Nebraska currently top 10 in pass efficiency offense, also in pass efficiency defense. This is a total radio guy question, but which one's going to be most important for Nebraska on Saturday against Michigan if they want to come out with a win?
Yeah, I always want to say, why can't I have both? Can't I have a piece of
Why
each
not
pie?
both?
It's like Thanksgiving. Like, you don't want to upset one of the ants. You take both pieces of the pie. But which one has to have the best day for Nebraska to win, basically? I think I'm going to pick the pass defense for the Huskers because
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
Here's the reason. I think it's going I mean, I kind of expect a slog against Michigan. I expect it's not going to just be as crisp and pretty necessarily on offense, and you can still survive that if you can find an explosive play or two. But I do think Nebraska's DBs, their corners, have to be completely dialed in this game to make it such where if there is that one or two explosives, it comes from Nebraska's offense and not Michigan's. You know what I mean? Where they are keeping the game in front of them. They are sticky, as Matt Rule has said about them so far this season, where you sort of take that element away from Bryce Underwood because Michigan's going to be tough to defend just running the ball to start with. So if you give them both and your DBs aren't locked in, it could be a really tough day. So that's why my reasoning there. I think they have to take that away from Michigan's offense, and that can go a long way for the whole Husker defensive unit, including that D line trying to get to Underwood.
I thought I was giving you an easy off ramp there. Like I fully expected you to take offense because I do wonder about Nebraska's ability to run the ball against Michigan and what that's going to look like. So I think to me this is kind of previewing the next couple questions, but it feels like this is like a Dylan Raiola game. Like he's got to keep them on schedule. I think I think a little bit of a precarious situation is if you're in there on 3rd and long against Michigan and they're able to just stand there and tee off with blitzes and things like that. But which kind of brings me to my next question. What do you feel like? Because this game feels like it's going to be about Nebraska's lines on both sides of the ball. Obviously, the skepticism about Nebraska's defensive line has been kind of around for quite a while. But what do you feel like through 3 games about Nebraska's offensive line, and what do you feel like through 3 games about Nebraska's defensive line?
I mean, I feel like I know more about Nebraska's offensive line, not just because of the 3 games, but just because of the total resumes. And so we're in a situation where when you talk about the defensive line, it's just harder. Like we've been waiting for this game to actually give us the tell more on like what they have or what they don't have. Obviously, the last 2 games, I thought they made progress on the defensive line, but this is a whole different animal. And we're going to see if guys can get off the ball against Michigan, if you can make some plays behind the line of scrimmage. So obviously going in, I feel more comfortable with Nebraska's O-line, but I think the word I would use, Bruns, for the D-line and the trenches there is curious. Like I'm not down on the idea they could play well and hold their own, but they have to view this as an opportunity game and a prove it game because like I said, we don't have enough of a sample drawing on them yet to know completely what they are. I think we've been waiting for this game to see, but going in, the O-line has to be a strength for the Huskers. This is an experienced group. They're Big Ten ready. They've got guys who are 4th, 5th year starters. Let's see that be that unit that has that higher standard. Dylan Raiola said, I think the O-line has a higher standard this year. I want to see it in this game. So they're the group that I'm leaning on.
What lessons do you think Nebraska's front 7 learned from that game against Cincinnati? I mean, obviously it's a different athlete, but you're still facing a mobile quarterback that's, Michigan has said the reins are off. He can run, and do whatever he wants to do. But what lessons do you think they kind of carry forward from that game in Kansas City?
I think there's probably some inside football talk when they watch the tape about how to better cage a quarterback that they took from that game, and it wouldn't be stuff that I'd be able to spell out very well with this brain on a podcast. But I think they
Get the grease board out, draw me something.
no, I couldn't do it. But I think when they got in that room and they watched what Sorsby did, and you've got experienced coaches and you have Terry Braden saying, okay, this is where we maybe got out of our lane or we got over our skis on this particular play. This is what we have to do better to bottle that up against this type of quarterback this time. So I think that's useful in the way that you could go back to, I don't know how many plays, 6 or 7 from that opener, and show examples of where maybe one guy was just got a little bit out of his lane and it opened up the whole thing. You know, there were opportunities in that game. Like Javen Wright came pretty clean on like a 3rd down in the red zone late. And I don't think he got a hand on Sorsby. And so you probably look at like, you know, everything on that, like not just your passing lane, but how you leaned in for the tackle and everything about it. So all the technique part. So that's why that game was good. And it might be a blessing in disguise for Nebraska that they had some things go wrong, that it was on tape, but they still won. And now hopefully you iron it out against Underwood, who I think Michigan wanted to maybe put it on tape last week. Bruntz said, hey, he's going to run a little bit. Like he had, what did he end up with rushing wise? He ran it like 9 times, but he had a big number, led them in rushing. And so I think there was a point to them doing that, probably thinking about this game.
Just having everybody talk about it all week. They've given us things to talk about. What you talking about Underwood, talking about Dylan Raiola. I mean, this Dylan has had just a gangbuster start through 3 games, extremely efficient. The touchdown numbers, great, no interceptions. What does this game kind of mean in the big picture for him? In terms of kind of the trajectory of his career. I think this is start number 17 for him in his college career, but this feels like probably the biggest one he's had.
Yeah, I think it is. Here's the thing. You don't want to overdo it, and a rational mind wouldn't, but there aren't rational minds who are usually connected to the hot take world and sports. And so there aren't going to be many of those. Like there's a lot of people that have, I mean, they might have watched Nebraska, Cincinnati, but they watched it more casually. And now they're really leaning in. They're like, okay, Nebraska's 3-0. They've got in the back of their mind, this is where Nebraska always falls on the banana peel. And so they're going to go into it with some skepticism about this program and about the quarterback, because I think some of them, as we saw in all those preseason rankings about Raiola, Bruntz, there was some doubt there. There was no question that some people were putting him lower on the list than some other guys, even though he had that experience. And so I think, as much as I want to say, yeah, it's a game where if he had an average day and you lost, you pick it up and you go on to the next one. That's true. And you can have a really good season still. But the big conversation outside of our bubble is going to start to be really defined by this week. And that's just the way it is. I mean, there's no getting around it, because there's going to be people who decide, I'm going to make my take on Dylan Raiola off this game, either like way too high in the sky or way too low on the ground. And that's sports, I guess, in that position, right? I mean, it's just one of those like, you know, positions where it's like meant for like someone like Skip Bayless to talk it to death the next day. So hopefully for his sake, he has a really good game, because we've seen that. I think he's a lot better quarterback this year than last, but now it's that chance to really prove it against a tougher foe.
It feels like a game where he's going to have to make like 2 or 3 big plays, right?
Mm-hmm. And ideally, this is the difference. You have the receivers who make it with you, you know, like we remember the plays. We talked about it for 8 months where a receiver had a chance last year to possibly do something and didn't for Nebraska in those exact moments you're talking about. In the first game, they went and got it. And Isaiah Hunter got that play that had been lacking. Dane Key made a nice route for that touchdown that ended up being the winner. And so that's why those guys came here. That's why you brought them here and they wanted to play with Raiola for these type of games. And so that's what's awesome about this one. I mean, it's why you It's why you come to Nebraska. It's why people went to Michigan. You want to play in a helmet game like this on CBS at 2:30, and you know that people are going to overreact to everything you do, but you want to be like out there in the arena. And so that's what we got in front of us.
Glad you mentioned it. An absolutely elite helmet game in this one. Two helmets that look really, really nice together. We'll have plenty today from Nebraska players, assistant coaches over at the stadium. Keep it locked on Husker 24/7 for everything leading up to the Huskers and Wolverines.